Good morning, Revolution, and welcome to our show this morning after a 2 week hiatus. We missed you. I hope you missed us. We were busy with a party school for young people and YCL. By the way, if you're interested in party education, write us at cpusa at cpusa.org. Most of the classes are going to be presented on YouTube and on our website, and so you'll be able to check them out. And then we have a whole section on the website devoted to educational videos, basic introductions to the theories of Marx, Engels, Lenin, Gus Hall, Henry Winston, Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, Claudia Jones, you name it. Well, it's been a hell of a week. We're going to be talking about the Kansas stood up in a very profound way. Mrs. Pelosi walked down the steps, of her plane onto the territory of China in Taiwan. Big issue. And then there's some issues around the election, which we want to take up, and some interesting tactics that the Democrats are employing in a number of races. And then finally, our mailbag. So let's get started. You know, one of the things that happened this week is that the employment numbers went up. They were twice what they were expected. Breonna Taylor's assassins were charged by the federal government, by the Justice Department, in her shooting 2 years ago. That was a big thing. And it also appears that Merrick Garland's Justice Department is beginning to take some serious steps with respect to prosecuting some of the higher ups in the January 6th insurrection. So I want to start with a lightning round. Uh, do you want to give Garland's Justice Department A, B, C, D, or F, Anita, with respect to how it's comporting itself in the struggle for democracy in these days?
I would give him an incomplete, which is something we used to do in college grading. His job is so far from done, and I can appreciate that he's being careful and crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. But I wish he would move with a little more speed. So I'm trusting. I mean, his Justice Department goes on till 2024. Even if the midterms change that, they can't change the Justice Department. So he has some time, but I hope to see that speed up a little bit.
Anita shifted the terrain a little bit, as always, giving him an incomplete. Rosanna, A, B, C, D, or F?
I think I'm going with Anita. Incomplete.
Incomplete, okay.
I want to see
Scott,
what the turnout is.
they've been under a lot of pressure. Everybody's saying, "What are you doing? What are you waiting on?" I mean, let's go after these sons of guns. What do you think? Are they doing the do? Are they taking care of business, or are they still?
I'm with Anita and Rosanna. It's
Half-stepping.
incomplete, but sometimes you gotta give. I do believe in sort of motivational grading sometimes, so I'm going to go ahead and say maybe a B, but with a lot more work. With a lot more work, you could bring this up to an A, even an A plus, if we actually take on and dismantle the apparatus of white supremacist terrorism and fascism that stormed the Capitol on January 6th, including its funders.
How about the great state of Kansas? Let's shift the conversation a little bit. Big vote there for abortion rights. People in this conservative state, though they do have a Democratic governor. I bet you he's a kind of a conservative guy himself, I would imagine. Or is it a woman? I'm not sure. It's a woman, so
I think so.
I stand corrected. Conservative woman. Let's talk about Rosanna. Were you surprised by the vote?
I was surprised. I was even more surprised by the margin.
Mm.
I thought it was really, to me, it's very significant. And, there are other states that are coming up, some that are going to be positive ones, and others that are not going to be so positive. But so vote yes in California, and I think Kentucky, and I think the others no.
In our previous program a couple of weeks ago, one of our guests was saying that it's the price of gas, stupid, and that's what's going to determine the election, if you remember. And that and only that. Were they wrong, Anita? I mean, what's going to be the main issue in this election? Is it going to be abortion, or is it going to be the price of gas?
Well, the price of gas is going down, Joe, all over the country, and I think it will continue to drop. And then the other election, the other economy news, as you said, was looking really good. Next week we'll have figures on inflation. So I think this taking the rights away from half the population is really a significant thing. And the vote in Kansas shows that. I mean, Republican people who can get pregnant also need abortion care as well. I think there's a libertarian streak in Kansas that they're saying has showed itself in this election. And people are not going to stand for the government interfering in these private decisions that individuals have to make for themselves.
Scott, it was in all likelihood overwhelmingly a vote by women, but also some men must have joined in the vote. That's a good thing, no?
It's extremely important and extremely significant because I mean, not only an injury to one is an injury to all, right? This is an attack on equality for everybody, even though the heaviest damage is borne by people who can bear children. But it's extremely important for men to be involved in the struggle for women's rights, and I think people are realizing that it's not going to stop there. It's like everything is on the chopping block. And in terms of the issues of this election, I think it's in a sense an error for us to say kind of in advance, oh, the main issue is going to be this, the main issue is going to be this. Yeah, we have to recognize what the big trends are, the points of interest. But one of the interesting things that came out in the discussion in the national board the other night was that this was not just a spontaneous kind of upwelling of support for abortion rights. This was the result of a lot of on the ground, door to door, everyday work, and that's kind of what it takes. We can also, we meaning the broad movement, the of politically active democratic minded people, we have to shape the issues that are going to be important in the election. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Initiative is in the hands of those who take it, and those who don't take it are initiated on. I always think about this South African proverb: "You have touched a woman, you have touched a rock, and we will crush you." And it seems to me that if you think about the role of the fight for democracy ever since Trump got elected, from the women's demonstrations the day after he was elected, the inauguration, to the uprisings around the murder of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, these democratic questions, the right to live free of racism, the right to live free of sexism, the right to be able to vote, without it being suppressed. Those are things that are motivating hundreds of millions of people. And it would be wrong to take a narrow, what we call economistic, only seeing the important issues as basic bread and butter issues as the main thing. You never know what's going to spark a revolution. It could be the environment, pollution. It could be, something like police violence, could be access to health care, or it could be the right to vote. So it's really important to keep our eye on what's taking place on the ground and respond to it. and be involved in this electoral process. We can't
And keep
stand
in
it.
mind that the first
Huh?
phase of the first phase of the Russian Revolution in 1917 was initiated by a mass demonstration of women in St. Petersburg, or largely of women, and that workers came out of the factories to join them, um, and in that. So that was another instance that, like, yeah, don't, like, getting women angry enough to go in the streets means you've done something really dangerous if you're looking to stay in power.
By the way, in our research for this week's program, we came across an important historical fact. That is, with respect to January 6th. And that is that January 6th wasn't the first time the good old boys revolted against democracy and tried to, by means of insurrectionary tactics, impose their will. The first time, Anita, was when? It was back in Florida in 2000?
Exactly. And I'm not sure, I don't have all the facts of that in front of me, but I think we saw that, well, that was during the Gore Bush 2000 vote. And apparently some of the same uh, creeps who were involved in the 2020 insurrection were actually involved in that one as well. And that is people like Roger Stone and Steve Bannon and those folks. So yeah, this is not, shouldn't be a January 6th should not have been so much of a shock to us. There's been a buildup of this kind of indifference to democratic will of the people in the GOP in particular for a long time.
They called it the Brooks Brothers Rebellion. And they occupied the place where they were counting the votes. And Brett Kavanaugh was there, and John Roberts was there. And then, what's his name? You already said his name, Anita.
Roger Stone.
Stone, who orchestrated many of the. We're going to come back to some of this at the end. Let's move on. Mrs. Pelosi, the Speaker, Scott, landed in Taiwan against all advice. She went anyway, standing up for what? Was she standing up for?
I don't think she was standing up for anything except the interests of the U.S. ruling class in escalating military conflict, in trying to impose its will everywhere. Um, it's I mean, Taiwan is part of China. China has always insisted on the one China policy, and whether or not the ruling class of the United States agrees with that, to do what Mrs. Pelosi did was extremely foolish. And we've seen now that, in fact, tensions are escalating. China is building up its military presence. It has cut off cooperation with the United States on environmental and other issues. And this, it looks to me like the U.S. ruling class is trying to spin this as another kind of Ukraine situation. We're going to help liberate, Taiwan from oppression by China or whatever, and it's not going to work. Um, it's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. It comes on the heels of huge escalation of anti-China provocations in the Pacific, notably with the Australia, UK, US um, military partnership. Um, and I think it was especially ill-timed because, we're coming up on August 6th and August 9th, which are the anniversary of the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the most catastrophic and inhuman acts of war in history. And it's a time when we should be thinking about, how to avoid war at all costs, not how to push the world closer to it. I don't think there are words strong enough to condemn the speaker's decision to land in Taiwan.
Rosanna, she seemed like Mrs. Pelosi was standing up for U.S. imperialism, and this is part of a piece of the Biden administration ongoing Cold War 2.0 strategy. Is this a winning strategy for the elections?
I don't think so. I think what they really need to do is get a backbone and start really fighting for the people's needs here in the United States. Take care of your business at home first, and stop going around the world trying to protect democracy and all this BS when they're not exercising it here in the United States.
Not exercising it here and creating, war and threats of war creates an atmosphere, Anita, where fascist ideas thrive, xenophobic ideas thrive, right-wing nationalist or chauvinist ideas. Can't they see that? I mean, are they blind?
That's I don't know whether they can see it or not. I guess they're just willfully blind, willfully ignorant to those threats. And then we look at China's reaction and call that a provocation. It really was a despicable act that Speaker Pelosi took this week. Really provoking, and I agree with everything that Rosanna and Scott said too. It really shows that she's standing up for the working class of capitalist United States, especially, and protecting their interests. And it's true that talking about China all the time does filter down to people. Some people are going to hear that and take steps, violence against Asian American people, for example, as a result of this kind of talk. So I think it was really dangerous all around what Speaker Pelosi did this week. It's really a
I think
shame.
she's standing up for the ruling class of not the working class of the capitalist
Oh,
United
did I
States.
say the working
Just
class?
to make
So
you get some
sorry.
letters. What was she saying?
Whoops.
There's some unions who have this anti-China, policy. So we don't want
Mhm.
folks to think that the Communist Party. We do not support that. We do not support that. Don't even try it. I can, I can just hear some of our detractors. uh, anyway, let's move on. Speaking about funny Democratic Party politics and policies, which is why we need a bigger and stronger Communist Party, by the way. And you can join cpusa.org/join. We're still growing, a couple hundred a week. I'll be happy when it's a couple thousand a week. But anyway, when you think about some of the tactics that in Michigan, one of the Senate members of the House who voted against Trump, he's a big business guy. I think they have supermarkets or something.
Mhm.
He voted to impeach Trump. And the Democratic Party spent $400,000, Rosanna, 400,000 to support the Republicans' campaign. And the dude won. And then the Republican who got defeated turned around and endorsed his opponent, who's a advocate of the big lie. I mean, this is just,
It's
why are people
insane.
critical? Huh?
I said it's insane.
It's
I think
insane.
it's pretty crazy to do stuff like that. It's like a desperate act when it's so easy to just fight for working people's needs, and working people will reciprocate. That's the mood of the US population now is, you know, we have these needs, and if you take care of them, we're going to back you in the elections. And so they really need to focus on that, healthcare, livable wage, housing, all of these things that people are suffering here in the United States. Focus on working to guarantee those things, and they'll have our vote instead of doing these backdoor tricks. And it's just, it's they're looking for an easy way out, and it's not going to happen.
And
Anita, they're
I'd
two
add that.
Machiavellian by half, and I mean, it seems that political developments are breaking in the direction of a defeat of the right in the Senate and in the House. I mean, the environmental package that was negotiated between the Senator Schumer and Mr. Manchin, Semina signed on to it. Jobs reports are up. Um, Things are looking much better because of the reaction of women and men to the abortion ruling, you know. Um, and even in Ohio, my home guy, Tim Ryan, is he still 10 points ahead of the Republican? You were really worried about that a couple of weeks ago.
I I haven't seen the latest figures about where he is, but I've read the material about these articles about the Democrats supporting these Republican far right people, and in some ways, I think it's a little, I mean, overstated. They're getting information out to the voters about how conservative they are and how extreme they are, and they know that this extreme position that they take appeals to some Republican primary voters. So it is serving their interests, but it's all legal. It's not like what the Republicans have been doing, illegal tactics. For instance, in Florida in the 2020 election, there were a lot of GOP tactics that took place there that ended up in litigation and criminal prosecution of some people. So I think dirty tricks are parts of a lot of elections. This isn't the dirtiest of tricks, but it's certainly misdirected.
Speaking of far right influence, we had a big debate in the YCL school. Big debate. Some were arguing that the Republican Party is a fascist party now. And I kind of poo pooed it. But then I saw the headline in the People's World yesterday about how all of these extremists are winning these primaries. And now they got Urban, a little fascist from Hungary. I emphasize little, fascist from Hungary. And he's a George Wallace type, talking about how people from different nations shouldn't have babies together. And they let him speak. They didn't say no, you can't come on our platform. And so, is there a real danger, Scott, of the
Well, yeah.
Republicans?
I
Uh,
mean,
I mean, I know there's a danger, but have we reached a breaking point?
I think that the you know where the exact breaking point is will only be visible in hindsight. It may already have happened, in fact, but I think we are in an extremely dangerous situation, and that's what makes this Democratic Party strategy of trying to fund and bring forward supposedly unelectable extreme fascist right wing candidates so risky. And I wanted to kind of touch on the idea of electoralism because it's something that we get charged with. Oh, the electoral, you just believe in elections, whatever. No, what the Democratic Party, what that strategy reflects is electoralism, the idea that political struggle is confined to the period of the elections. And once the elections have finished and you've got the person elected that you wanted, then the struggle is over. That is the polar opposite of a communist and a working class approach to elections, which sees um, electoral struggle as one part of a much broader democratic struggle. We always talk about marching from the street to the ballot box and back, right? So that narrow electoralism reflected in, oh, let's just try to um, play the odds in these elections to make you know to get hard to elect Republicans winning primaries. That's a real bad idea, and it's not a working class approach at all. And it's going to amplify the danger, amplify the platform that these fascist Republicans have.
I think that Dimitrov's definition of fascism as the open terroristic dictatorship of the most reactionary sections of finance capital. Hey, I remember that. I think it still holds. I think it still holds, y'all. And that's important because it's more than the Republican Party. It's more than the Republican Party. It is also it's the ruling class. Where is the ruling class at? And even and what was decisive in the period before January 6th is that the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Roundtable and other sections of big capital said no, and they told their stooges like the Attorney General, what was his name? Um,
Barr.
they Barr. They told Barr, and they told the generals, and they told back up. They told them to back up, and they backed up. You see, because they were holding that line all the way up until the end, and then finally, when Giuliani and the crazy lawyers and Roger Stone and all of them started pushing towards and Bannon and all the rest, they and that's important. And also, what's important is what happened. Fascism wasn't only defeated in Washington; it was defeated in Georgia. It was defeated in Pennsylvania. It was defeated in Michigan and in Arizona. You know, based on the vote of the people, but that also had an impact on those Republicans, legislators and governors and state officials who told Trump no. That's important too, and we shouldn't. Anyway, it's going to be a long, hard fight, and the danger is real, and we got to be in it to win it. Don't
Joe,
stand
can
aside,
I ask a question?
because if you stand aside, you're facilitating it. We got to go to the mailbag, Scott. Is that okay?
Sure.
Mailbag. What is the CPUSA's belief on income differences between high value occupations like software engineers, what are considered low level jobs like janitors? I'm not saying these workers are less valuable. I'm only using those terms due to differing market demands for certain jobs and skills. How does the CPUSA approach from each according to his ability or her ability or their ability to each according to their needs today? Who wants to take a shot at that? Scott?
I would just say that we have to be real. Um, we have to be very aware of you know what we mean by the market value assigned to different professions. So if we think about stuff like software engineers, I remember growing up in the mostly in the sort of late 80s, 1990s, and everybody was talking about, oh, you got to learn computers, learn to work with computers. That's how you get the good jobs. That's how you're really going to be successful. And true, there definitely was a period where that was a path to um, financial security, professional security. But now those jobs are being proletarized. Those jobs are like the ruling class does everything it can to make sure that those skills that used to be the royal road to a good job are now you know being being devalued. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing is, I think Engels mentions in the anti-During on this wage differential, uh, pay differential, that it reflects, in some sense, the cost of training. So the fact that a doctor makes a lot more in the United States than um, in Cuba, or that a doctor will make more under capitalism than under socialism, uh, is because right now doctors are paying for a massively expensive education, and once you stop making people pay for that, the salary um, sort of schedule changes. Sorry, that was not a terribly coherent response, but a couple of things that I think need to be brought in.
Well, we're
I
going
want to
to
say
have
something.
in a second, huh?
I'd like to just say, that you can't have a clean desk without a janitor. You can't work without those that are doing the manual labor, so to speak. So they're each equally valuable in their own right. I recently traveled, and we were so appreciative of the fact that there were workers there cleaning the restrooms, because some people are real pigs. But so and that's valuable. That's very valuable to have a clean environment. You can't work if you don't have a clean desk. You don't have a clean office. So I think that we have to get away from putting value on certain tasks over others, because they all work together. And when they all work together, then we can all build together. So they're each is valuable in their own right. And I understand the educational part of it, but I think in the end we have to start looking at everything as valuable.
Thank you, Rosanna. From according to his ability, to each according to her need, is a communist principle of a communist society in which the state has disappeared, in which money is no longer a means of exchange. That's like Star Trek, one of my favorite shows. It's a epoch of the future. And
Right.
until then, the formula is from each according to her ability, to each according to her work, to each according to her work. And value for us economically, a person, the value of a job is based on your relationship to production, what you produce, and how much profit it creates at the end of the day. I mean, I don't know what Mr. Gates does every day to earn $100 million an hour, or however astronomical
Doesn't
amount of
earn
money
it.
we make, you know. Uh, but now you have a parasitic kind of situation going on where they don't produce nothing. They just make money by, you know, financialization of the economy and trade and speculating on the stock market and so on and so forth. Well, that does it for this week. Until next week, stay strong, stay safe, and whatever you do, stay in the fight. You take a vacation in August, we'll come back Labor Day, stay in the fight. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.
Later,
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
comrades.
everybody.